it's Katie.
And Carol.
From Skirt Strategies. It's another training for you, video training, which we think is fabulous way to learn. We think it's a great way to learn little things in big pieces. That's not what I meant. It's a great way to learn big things in little pieces.
Yeah.
In this topic.
It's a big topic. The art of giving constructive feedback.
Mm-hmm. Maybe we should add on a subtitle, without leaving a trail of bloodied bodies behind you.
Katie loves that, and it's true. It's true. I mean, that's really what this is about giving constructive feedback without, having hurt feelings.
Mm-hmm. We put training together in small, manageable sizes that we call tiny trainings that give big results. And that's what you're here for, a small...
And can I just say we do that for you because we know you don't have a ton of time to, to manage extra in your life. So we're trying to give it to you in tiny trainings.
In fact, while we're recording this, Carol has a bouillabaisse going in the kitchen. And that's true.
It's called multitasking. Right?
I'm crazy impressed. So here I am fiddling with recordings and she's making bouillabaisse. Let's start into this with a sense about feedback in itself. Why is feedback important, and what are some things to remember? Well, know that it means that you care.
Yeah. You don't give it if you don't care.
Yes. Right. You give a flip. And to do that, you're putting some effort into it. We're going to show you how to put that effort in a way that'll work for you. Feedback is contagious.
Right. But remember, that works in a bad way too. So, running around, leaving bloody bodies in your wake.
Encourages others.
Yes, is also contagious. So be careful about how you're giving feedback.
I would ask those of you that are listening to think about the work environments where you dwell. And if they are indeed those that tend to lean towards the positive side, where, if somebody gives some positive feedback, our human reaction is to want to give back. And so we perpetuate it with more positive feedback. But the same thing, as Carol said, happens if you've got an environment that's kind of toxic, where people are pooping on each other, where people are not treating each other well. It encourages you to jump in the melee and do the same thing. We're not thinking that's a good idea, but so the positive is something to keep in mind. Feedback is easy to overlook. You can not do it. It does take an effort, but it's almost always worthwhile.
It is. People want to know how they're doing.
The last thing we say, which is one of our favorite lines, feedback is a gift.
So when you're getting feedback, think of it as a gift. And when you're giving feedback, think of it in that kind of generous giving way.
Right. So we're going to narrow down not just giving and taking feedback. We're going to narrow it down to the giving part, and you can give positive and you can give negative. And we're going to narrow it down to the negative. We're not going to call it negative. We're going to call it corrective because it sounds more diplomatic.
Right.
We're going to call it corrective feedback, delivering it to others in a way that is positive.
There you go.
Yay! It sounds like there should be theme music at this point. Here are the 4 major pieces that Carol and I would say to remember. 4 major pieces of giving the feedback. And we'll define each of these. One is context. Give it context. The second one is watch your language. The third one is consider the timeliness. And the fourth one is keep in mind what happens with human reactions.
Yes. We are doing this in a human environment.
People do react. The first one, give it context.
And so what do you mean by that, Katie?
Well, what I mean by context is if you deliver a message in a way that answers the so what, or it gives it meaning on a bigger level, it gives it a context, and the person that is receiving it is more likely to get it, not just get it, but get it. Oh, I get it. That kind of get it, and put it into play in a way that's going to work.
And why it's important to put it into play. Right. So, yeah.
Right. So it gives the person the applicability of it.
Right.
Right off the bat.
Good.
So if, for example, you're an employee and you work for me, Carol, and I'm trying to work on your listening skills. And I've noticed that with some of our clients, your listening skills aren't so great. If I want to have you work on it, or I want us to work on it together. I might give you some constructive feedback about what I've observed about your listening skills. Now, I can do it in a way that's really abrupt and reactive.
Right.
Carol, you need to work on your listening skills.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah.
And so specific too. Or I can give it in the way that gives it context. Carol, you and I talked last week about how important it was for you to be setting a goal for listening better. Mm-hmm. Maybe you've even set a goal for it, whatever fits into the bigger picture. Carol, you and I have talked about how you want to be better at it. That has given it context. Now, everything I say from this point on, she's all ears because it fits into you want to be better at it.
Right.
Right.
Right. So I'm listening now because it's part of my bigger goals and yours as well.
Here's another example.
That's the context.
Right. So here's an example on the screen. I know that recently you were interested in improving your customer service skills. During the recent interaction where Mr. Johnston walked into the lobby and asked for something, I noticed that you seemed flustered.
Right.
So I've just set up an environment for you want to be better at something. That's the context. Here's how you're doing. And that's the feedback. Right. And now we have a conversation where you and I, in a caring tone, which we're going to talk about tone next, in a caring tone, I can set the scene for you and I working on it together. So it almost looks like you and I, instead of face to face with a dialogue of you did this wrong, and you feeling defensive, we visualize each other or standing side by side, maybe shoulder to shoulder.
Right.
And we're looking at the opportunity to get better at something, like being on a table in front of us and we're both looking at it together.
No, I do love that. And I think coming back to context, if you can put that in, our sales goal for this month is such and such. Now, if we treat customers like this, we're never going to reach that sales goal.
Right.
Wouldn't you say?
Yes. I'd say, aha, you're connecting the dots for me.
There you go. So give it context and it's a we form, not a you form necessarily.
I'm more likely to go out and make it happen.
Right.
The next piece, your feedback language. Well, I don't think there's rocket science to this one,
right.
Although we do have some scripting that helps. The first one is the tone. Think in your head about, I care. I want this to be appropriate. I want this to be worthwhile. I want the other person to feel like they're valued. If you have that going on in your head, your language is going to reflect it.
Right.
Right?
Right.
And then the second piece with your language is you can script some things. We think that we have to be good off the cuff, but you can start off a conversation in a way that's scripted, and then you're more likely to know that it will start off on the right foot.
Sure.
That's great.
And especially for a difficult conversation. And many times corrective feedback is a difficult conversation. So we always say you can script the first sentence. About after that, it kind of goes on its own. It's left to fate. But if you come in with, and your tone and your language and everything else is kind of that we form
and positive,
then you have a much better outcome.
Much better.
Yeah.
Much better. Here's some examples for you because I know you're probably wanting some help with it. One of our favorites is, here's what I'm seeing and here's how it affects me. That's a backup line for me when I'm in a situation where I'm feeling like I need to give somebody some feedback, or maybe it's a conflict situation. Here's what I'm seeing, focuses on your perspective. I. Here's how it affects me, focuses on the impact it's having to me. Not what your intent is,
right.
Not how you've screwed up my day, you this, you that, or you meant to do this. It takes it completely off of the other person.
Right.
Then you can, get into the dialogue. Other options, the tell-ask technique.
And I really love this one.
Thank you to my husband psychologist for this one.
Yes.
I've noticed the need for clarifying the ground rules. What are your observations? Statement, question. That's the tell and the ask.
Love it. Just because, and especially as a boss, you don't want people guessing what answer they need to give.
Right.
I think she wants me to say this. Just here's how I feel. How do you feel?
Give the other person the option.
Yeah.
Jump in.
Right.
This works for couples. I'm in the mood for steak tonight. What would you like? I know so many couples that was, I don't care. I don't care.
And then you're driving down the road. You still don't know where you're going.
I don't care. Okay, the next piece, timeliness, something to consider.
How soon is too soon?
How soon is too soon to give somebody feedback?
Well, I think anytime you're reactionary, you're mad, you're upset, something's happened.
Slow down.
Slow down.
Okay, good to know.
Go home, think about it, come back with a plan.
Come back with a plan.
Yeah. So timeliness. And then you can also wait too long.
Right.
It's not a topic anymore. It's not, remember a couple of months ago when you such and such, that doesn't work.
Well, that's why just-in-time training has been so great is people, it's applicable. It's, now I know what you were talking about.
Sure.
And I remember what you were talking about. Give it too long, I don't remember. And the last piece, which is one to consider, is what about people's reactions?
Well, that's why we fear these conversations a lot of times, is because you're not sure how somebody else is going to react, and you have to get over that.
Get over it.
Your boss, you need to get over that. You need to just deal with the way they react. Know that you're not leaving a trail of bloody bodies, that you are really working towards a mission, a vision, a goal, and I'm sorry, but everybody has to fall in line here.
Buck up. Put on your big girl panties.
Put on your big girl panties, and
if you've followed the right track here, if you've said it with care, if you haven't been condescending, if you've used a lot of the me versus the you, if you've used observations instead of inferences, you've had your head on you square, and you have gone about it in a way that was appropriate. You're less likely to have people reacting. For those of people that we work with who are going to overreact anyway,
sure,
right? I recommend that this is going to sound kind of counterintuitive. You go ahead and deliver the corrective feedback. You let them know that you want to come back around, want to let them sit on it for just a little while, and then you want to come back around and talk about it next week or whenever. And then you ignore the fact that they got reactive.
I like that. I mean, they're going to have to stew in it a while, possibly.
Yeah, that's fine.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
Let them stew.
We too often think, well, they got defensive. And we conclude mentally, then I shouldn't have said it.
Right.
But that's not necessarily true.
Because you need the behavior corrected. You wouldn't have said anything otherwise.
Exactly. Right. So be tough with it.
Right.
So those are the four areas. The context, consider the context. Carefully think through your language, make it timely, and then I'd say pre-think some of those reactions. And if there's something you might do differently based on how you think that may react, then maybe it helps you plan, maybe not. Maybe not. Lastly, what about you? What about where you are on all of these? Because this is training, you and I are great at, getting people to think. Because This is training, we haven't just dumped it on you. We really want you to consider what of those four areas are you good at? Which areas do you want to be just a little more fine-tuned? This is for you. And
we'd love to hear from you. So don't hesitate to email either Katie or I, Katie at Skirt Strategies or Carol at Skirt Strategies. We would really love to hear from you and see where you are on all of this.
You are on it. And this is the walk away from it. It's not rocket science, as I say, although I love rocket science.
You are a rocket scientist.
I love rocket science. But you can look at feedback as the opportunity that helps you kind of get in there. Check yourself. Many of us find ourselves giving corrective feedback because it makes us feel superior, or it makes the other person shuts them up. Do you have ulterior motives?
Yes.
That's kind of a mental thing, but are you really doing it for the reason you need to be doing it? Is it a truly heartfelt sense that you want to help the other person get better at something?
And then check yourself and make sure you're not leaving bloodied bodies
behind. Yeah.
Right.
And be brave. Jump in there and do it, especially if you tend to be more of a I don't know if you have a little fear and self-doubt about jumping in and giving people the corrective feedback. So keep in touch with us. We are at Skirt Strategies. If you like having a little bit of training, if you get emails from us at all, that means you're on a mailing list, and we'd love for you to stay on it. If you want just a little bit more, we do offer regular ongoing online training. We also offer a subscription membership for our members that want to have regular small pieces of training. We call them tiny trainings, and they get a big impact because they're working on small things and in regular increments.
Consistently.
Right. And so there is a membership at our site, skirtstrategies.com/membership. That's super cheap, and it helps you hold yourself accountable and become a lifelong learner. Love having you with us. Keep in touch with us. Thanks, Carol.
Thanks, Katie.